A firm managing $96 billion in client assets just got hit. And the craziest part is 5.7 million client records were stolen. And the craziest part is they refused to pay the hackers. So what did the hackers do? They took everything and they dumped it on the dark web. If you don't know what the dark web is, if you've watched Stranger Things, it's essentially the upside down. You kind of have to know how to get there if you're a techie. And that is where they trade, where the hackers and people that really don't abide by the law typically sell and trade different things. I'll leave it up to your imagination or if you want to check out the dark web after this video. So the craziest part is 2 class action lawsuits followed, and this happened in 2016. Coincidentally enough, the same year that this video is being recorded. And I want to talk about why RIAs are the target for hackers, and this video is not to scare you, but this video is to tell you to be prepared for what can actually happen. I'm going to share my screen here and kind of walk through what you need to know and what really ensued in this entire thing. How are you doing? My name is Harrison Barron from Secure Wealth IT. We help financial firms just like yourself make sure that they are not only compliant with the SEC guidelines, but also make sure that their systems are updated and compliant and secure, making sure that your computers run the way that you want. You can sleep easy at night knowing that things are locked away and safe. So if you'd like to learn more, you can head over to securewealthit.com. We have a ton of different things on there, including our resources section. We have a finance calculator if you want to play with that, our resources section which has a ton of free tools that you can play around with and use to work on your RIA, from cheat sheets to evidence vault kits to comparison guides, and we are constantly working on more. And if there's something that you'd like to see, please reach out to us at securewealthit.com. We are happy to make it. We have a cool little finance calculator too. We built it so it's easier to use than hopefully some of the other tools that you use on a regular basis, and it looks a little bit nicer, gives you some good feedback here. So let's talk about the hack, because I think the hack is really the most important thing. And even before we talk about the hack, why are RIAs the target? There are over 15,000 SEC registered RIAs, and most of them have fewer than 100 employees. That's great. I mean, I'm a big fan of small business, right? But that means small teams, lean IT budgets, and huge amounts of sensitive client data. Who would have guessed? RIAs hold access to the important things that hackers want. They have PII, personally identifiable information. Sorry, it's been a day of saying technical terms. PII, personally identifiable information. The information that first name, last name, potentially social security numbers, things of that nature, their address, names of their dogs, their kids, their cats, all of those things can also be used to reset your password. Crazy enough, right? They also have access to money, if you guessed that, right? High net worth individuals and ultra high net worth individuals are dealing with 6, 7, 8, potentially even 9-figure transfers of money. And if that falls into the wrong hands, that could be a massive, massive headache, not only for the client, but also for the company doing that transfers. And unfortunately, many RIAs tend to be on the older side, and that means they're less tech savvy. They're not thinking about this. If you're watching this, good on you. And if somebody sent this video to you, I won't even suggest what I'm thinking, but you might be potentially out of touch with technology. But this makes it easier for attackers and hackers to target them. And only 57% of RIAs have recently increased their security budgets. Meanwhile, 11% actually decreased their IT spending last year, and that's from IT Brew. So that's pretty crazy, right? We have a huge hack. This is not an uncommon thing, unfortunately, at this point. So I want to talk about specifically the Mercer Advisors hack. Now, I'm going to pull up their website here just so you can see, but it's kind of insane how this has happened, right? And unfortunately, what's really coming of this entire thing. So in here we have unfortunately, Mercer Advisors is really who we're talking about here. And they've helping families for 40 years. And this is their website. I've confirmed that already, Mercer Advisors, a family office for your family. Why Mercer Advisors, in-house team. And you could see their whole team. There's nothing wrong with any of these people, right? This is just the company that they have, and I do wish that they put some people on here, but I'm sure that they're a little nervous about what has actually happened recently. But they are facing a class action lawsuit after ShinyHunters cyber attack. Now, you're probably wondering, why on earth are they named ShinyHunters? There are groups of hackers out there that like to be called a specific name. They can't just go out there and say, hey, my name's Harrison, I hacked everyone, right? It's usually, in many cases, a group of people. Now, sometimes they're one-off people, but they make sure that there is no identifiable information between each one. Sometimes they do, but for the most part, they're trying to make sure that if you've ever seen the show The Bank Job, nobody knows each other's name, nobody knows each other, who they are, what they do, but they all come together and they form a group. And in this case, their name is ShinyHunters. And that is the alias that they go through. So when there is a leak, the news and the media has something to point to, and they will leave things out there that basically say you were attacked by ShinyHunters as a way to build street credibility for them. They are basically digital gangsters. And there's nothing wrong with that. They're just normal people like you and I, but they enjoy hacking and in many cases, unfortunately, causing quite a bit of chaos out there. So a second lawsuit has been brought against Mercer Advisors in the aftermath of last month's cyber attacks from the criminal hacking group ShinyHunters, targeting several large RIAs. John Amick filed the second class action complaint on March 6th of 2026, which allegedly had 5.7 individual internal records exposed in a cyber breach. That is the craziest part about it. But if you look at their website, you wouldn't look at this website and say, hey, this is a company that has just recently been breached or had a massive hack. Unfortunately, they have. And what happened is ShinyHunters has now gone through and they've leaked that information, and it is causing a massive ruckus. So what's happened now is two separate class action lawsuits were filed against Mercer, and unfortunately, Mercer failed to implement adequate safeguards to protect highly sensitive client information. That's the worst part about it, is not only they were probably out of compliance in this entire thing, somebody probably knocked on their door and said, hey, we would like to sell you some cybersecurity. And unfortunately, Mercer was not the only firm hit. ShinyHunters simultaneously attacked Pathstone Family Offices, which manages $170 billion in assets, and Pointe Advisors, which manages roughly $60 billion. These are massive numbers that they are hitting and unfortunately leaking this information out onto the dark web, basically allowing other people to actually see it. But let's not talk about, look, we get it. They've been hacked. It is what it is. There's plenty of, wealthmanagement.com even talks about it, right? The Mercer Advisor hack and unfortunately the breach that is currently happening. And they wanted to pay, they want the $375 in ransomware, $370,000 in ransom, right? They didn't want to pay that. That's a lot of money. And honestly, they probably should have. But the catch is when you're dealing with hackers, they might just take the money and still release it. So who knows? Sometimes they're noble and they ask for the money and they say, hey, we hacked you, go fix it, right? And they take their money and walk away. And in other cases, they get hacked and they don't pay and they release the information. They could also release the information if they got paid. But let's talk about how they got in, because this is not a Hollywood hack. It unfortunately starts with a phone call. Now, in my recent video, I talked about voice spoofing, where basically they make you sound like somebody else or make them sound like somebody you may know. This is called vishing. Think of phishing with a V. It is voice phishing. And there's many terms to it, but hackers called an employee pretending to be, if you guessed IT support, you'd be right, and tell them that the company is updating its MFA settings. These are all things I've talked about on this channel. Your multi-factor authentication. It's that silly and annoying little thing when it says you're going to get a text message with a code. Do not share that code with anybody. That is multi-factor authentication. Or something as similar, or something like you have an authenticator app on your phone, where it's usually a 6-digit code that you have to enter in. This is multi-factor authentication. They directed the employee to a fake login page. They captured their SSO, single sign-on, credentials, and MFA codes. Then they register their own device as multi-factor authentication, basically telling the system, hey, this is a real computer. The employee didn't know what they were doing. They gave the information out, and that's how they got in. Phishing-resistant MFA, like hardware, security keys, or passkeys, would have stopped this attack. Now, in this case, this person knowingly gave it to them. However, they would never have mentioned it over voice, and that's one of the biggest things. There's also tools that you could put in that would make it even harder for that to get actually picked up. This is play number one. Play number two is they did a Salesforce misconfiguration. They scanned public-facing Salesforce sites for misconfigured guest user profiles with excessive permissions, meaning somebody set up Salesforce publicly and didn't lock it down so anybody can get in there. There's no social engineering. There's no making somebody do something. No credentials needed. They could just get in there with some pretty low effort, unfortunately. And what happened is, this is what is starting this massive, massive hack. So let's talk about what it costs, because we're all in the money for this one. 2 federal class action lawsuits. I can't even imagine the final bill of this entire thing. However, 2 federal class action lawsuits, client notification is absolutely, undoubtedly required. Identity theft monitoring paid for by the firm, and then regulatory exposure under regulation S&P. And I can't even imagine the wrath that they are going to pull out from this. And who knows how deep it actually goes. ShinyHunters could have deleted tons of files in there, and trust me, if they're smart enough to get in the system, they are smart enough to cause quite a bit of issues in there. And this is a dual registered RIA and broker-dealer, already facing $325,000, which is probably the lowest number of that they're dealing with, SEC penalty for failing to implement multi-factor authentication and update its identity theft prevention program, leaving 8,500 individuals exposed. This is crazy. So let's talk about the dollar cost benchmark. The average ransomware claim costs $267,000. The average business interruption claim cost is $508,000. So I gave you a bunch of information. I gave you a bunch of money. I gave you a bunch of problems that are currently happening. What can you do right now? There's some things that you can absolutely implement. The first one is implement multi-factor authentication. Text message MFA is not enough. ShinyHunters specifically targeted SMS and non-push notification MFA, meaning there was a push notification or non-push notification on the phone. That is not enough. You need hardware keys and passkeys instead. Things that are going to be changing constantly and not even be available for more than a minute. This is hugely important. 2 is train staff on vishing. Not just phishing for an email, but vishing, a voice potential. It's really just a voice phishing where it sounds like somebody they know. If you are ever curious, call the person back. I promise you it's not that bad. Unfortunately, I have to bring Salesforce in this, but audit your Salesforce and your SaaS permissions. SaaS stands for software as a service. That is any tool that you're using from your planning, your custodian, your CRMs, whatever it is, you need to make sure that you lock down the appropriate permissions. If you aren't sure, call the company up and just tell them that you're nervous and you'd like to lock down the permissions a little bit more. They will go in and help you with that. They don't want you to get breached. They enjoy your business. And then also, last but not least, if you don't know how to do this, segment your network and implement a written response plan. If something happens, we do this, this, this. And segregating your networks means setting up, you have one for your employees and one for everybody else that comes into your office. Those are the most important things that you absolutely can do right now. Now, this video is not designed to scare you. It is designed to let you know that even in today, 2026, there are still things happening, and unfortunately, massive, massive financial news that nobody wants to see. If you need help with your cybersecurity, making sure that your system's locked down, making sure that you don't get ransomware or hacked, feel free to reach out to us at securewealthit.com. Wish you nothing but success in your RIA and your finance journey, and I'll see you on the next video.